Hello and welcome into another edition of State of the Sun Devils alongside Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred. I'm Jeremy Schnell. Arizona State has Kansas this weekend in football. Arizona State coming into this one 3-1, but 0-1 in the Big 12. I swear I almost said Pac-12 again. I almost did it.
I almost thought you were wrong about 3-1 for some reason.
The Pac-12 is so back. The Pac-12 is so back, though.
We can get to that later, possibly.
Yeah.
Kansas 1-4 and 0-2 in the Big 12. Very surprising to see Kansas at that spot right now with the 1-4 record. It's a Saturday 5 p.m. start, so the sun will be going down as the game is starting. So lighting not ideal for us photographers out there.
Isn't that like the time that you want?
No, it's either we want it all the way or we want it off.
I've heard that I've heard that the golden hour. It's called the golden hour for a reason, Jeremy.
But because of the shadows in Mountain America Stadium, it's difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as far as the weather, we can expect about a 104 degrees at kickoff.
Which is really good for my agenda of just, I enjoy
smoking out the other team, basically.
No, I think it's funny to see you, Jeremy, complain all the time about how much you're sweating while we're up in the air-conditioned press box.
Nothing is better than being on the field at an ASU football game. Let me tell you.
This is lies
Also,
from Jeremy.
I should say,
he does not believe this.
They stayed outside for all of Wednesday's practice.
Good.
I hope Kansas did that as well, because they're coming into a
they've got to hydrate.
Index of probably 110 on the field.
Yep.
Do you want to get into the nuts and bolts of this game, Jeremy?
Yeah, just wanted to let everyone know that the pregame show on Arizona Sports 98.7 and the Arizona Sports app will be with Luke Lipinski this week at 2:30.
Big time.
And then on the call, very friend of the program, Jeff Munn will be doing play-by-play for
Let's go, Jeff.
Yes.
Let's go, Jeff.
Very excited.
He told me specifically to not hype this up, so I'm hyping it up.
Yeah.
Jeff is the man.
Please listen to the game on the Arizona Sports app or 98.7 if you have the time, and support our friend Jeff Munn. ASU obviously coming off that bye week, Damon, and like you said, it's interesting. You're like, they're 3-1, and because it's been so long since they've played, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there's been so much that's happened already since then, and especially with kind of how a narrative goes throughout a bye week coming off a loss, and especially when that's the first loss of the season, it can kind of feel like those 2 weeks kind of blend together as one big loss. But luckily, I think that ASU has been able to use this bye week and really just all the time that they've had over the last couple weeks to kind of right some ships that needed to be righted over the Texas Tech game and really before that as well.
Jesse, we're going to get to Damon in a second on this, but I think I totally agree with the statement that Dillingham wants the guys to play hard again. I think I saw a little bit of that in the second half of the Texas Tech game, but when the game first started, I think it was a little difficult to see. I think they were a little off going into the start of that game.
Maybe, but I think that they've been. I think that I've seen the energy pretty good through the 4 games.
I
think
has seemed pretty consistent.
I think that they've just played better opponents as the season has gone on, as far as Texas State and then Texas Tech. So I think that's the difference. Like, Mississippi State is not good. We've found out that Wyoming is not good. So I think that it might look like they were playing more intense in that game, but in those 2 games. But obviously the opponent is a factor there. So I just think that they've got to play to more enough. I think they've just got to play more consistent, not make as many of just like the little errors that they've made in the past couple of games.
Damon, you wrote a story about what Kenny Dillingham is referring to. Can you kind of just take us through what you think he meant by getting back to playing hard?
Yeah, so on a day-to-day basis, it did kind of seem like things were starting to get a little stagnant for the group in terms of like just their momentum and energy with their approach. I think as soon as the Tuesday after the Texas Tech game, we got Cam Scattaboo yelling at teammates, trying to get more competition going in practice as early as like the stretch line. And I think over the last 2 weeks, we've really seen a level of competitiveness out at practice between like the linemen, especially jawing between each other about, who can get a rep right the first time and things like this. And really things that bring the group together so much more when it's like the players pushing each other to be more intense with how they're practicing and with their approach in general. And we've got Kenny begging for the team to be dogs with his post-practice speeches to the team, and it's super fun to see. He said after practice today, too, that he's been pleased with the way that they've turned that approach around. So I think that we've seen it, and we'll see it on Saturday as well.
Now let's get into Kansas real quick. They're coming off a 38-27 loss to TCU. As I mentioned before, they're 1-4. This is a team that was at the top of some of people's polls as a team that could win the Big 12 this year. 1-4 start. Don't have a home stadium. Could that mean anything toward why they're 1-4? I don't know. The stadium seemed pretty packed at Arrowhead last week. They were preseason number 22. They've only beaten FCS Lindenwood in week 1, and I mean, they killed them, but it's been one-score game after one-score game. 3 out of their 4 losses were one-score games, so that's something to look out for. And then last week, obviously, losing by 11 is a 2-score game, but it was pretty close until the very end.
Yeah, my opinion on Kansas is that they're just another victim of the Big 12. The Big 12 has been wild this year. It's been very unpredictable. I don't think Kansas is a bad team. They have just fallen victim to Big 12 chaos. Again, they've lost 3 one-score games and then 1 game by 11 points. Not a bad team. This isn't a bad team coming in. This is a team that could easily still get back and make a bowl game and turn around their season. So if I hope that ASU doesn't take anything lightly here, looking at the records, and understands, the talent that Kansas does have, and that they have been in most of their games, or all of their games they have been in.
Damon, I mean, from what you were saying, your previous point about what Kenny wants from this team, do you think it's possible for ASU to overlook this Kansas team with what he's been preaching to them over the past, almost 2 weeks now?
I think it's going to be less about whether they overlook Kansas or view them in as high esteem as they deserve, but more just about ASU wanting to get back to who they are and doing what they want to do, as opposed to thinking so much about the competition and to the matchup. I really just think that so many things that ASU does matches up well with Kansas, and like their ability to get after the ball. It didn't happen as much as in the Texas Tech game, but this has been a defense that has taken the ball away really well, and Kansas obviously has struggled with that immensely. I think it's 11 turnovers so far through the 4 games. Jalen Daniels is 8 interceptions.
What is going on with him?
That's double any previous season high of his. So I think that some of them have been fluky, but he does have some inaccuracy issues.
2 years ago, it was 2,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, 4 picks, a very good season. And this year, he just looks like a totally different player than what we've been used to from Jalen Daniels.
He's down to 53.1% completion percentage. That's not very good. Damon mentioned the 11 turnovers this year. That's 127th in the country. So, if you do the math, that's pretty low on the rankings among FBS teams. That's the key, I think, in this game for Arizona State. They got to force a few turnovers, whether that's punching the ball out with some fumbles, making some interceptions. Those fluky interceptions can also be caused by the defense, swatting the ball down at the line of scrimmage, and then it lands in the arms of another defender. So that's the key, in my opinion, for this game for ASU. They got to force the turnovers, because then that sets them up usually in good spots for their young quarterback, Sam Leavitt, to operate, in a short field and not be forced to do too many crazy things and run the ball. So I think ASU needs to load up the box, because Kansas has got a very good rushing attack, but and then hoped to force some turnovers as well.
He can run the ball, 32 carries, 117 yards, and 2 touchdowns. ASU have to look out for that. Ward said that that's the scariest kind of QB, someone that can improvise and work out of structure, Damon.
Yeah, you look at some of the plays, like he had a touchdown against TCU last week where he's just scrambling outside and finds the perfect window to put a ball to a receiver who's toes down in the end zone. And as much as we see the volatility, the inaccuracy, Jalen Daniels is still capable of making some of the most incredible plays that you'll see on a Saturday. And so it's something that ASU has to be in their spots on defense. They have to stay disciplined in doing their own assignments and not missing any assignments. We know that missed assignments were a big part of the last game. And so it's going to be really important to be disciplined in that game plan this week.
Something that I noticed from watching some of the tape from Kansas's last game against TCU is that there's a lot of motion involved in their offense that could, some things that, Jesse, we've noticed in college offenses is when there can be too much motion sometimes, players get confused. That could be something too what Kansas is experiencing right now, but it's also something that can confuse a defense. ASU has to look out for that, make sure that they don't get confused on defense, stay put, run the defense that they are told to run, and don't get out of structure themselves. Go ahead.
And to that point about the motions and all that goes on pre-snap for Kansas, Brian Ward was actually asked specifically about that today, and he said that he isn't worried too much about it just because of how much of that same kind of thing that he sees from the ASU offense on a day-to-day basis. I mean, ASU is constantly motioning guys across, going from condensed to spread sets all the time. So it's something that they see enough where he feels like they'll be well prepared for it.
So they're tied for they don't let Jalen Daniels get hit very often, though. Tied for 36 in the nation in sacks allowed. Their offensive line is pretty good. And I mean, listen, the running game that they have too is pretty good. So the offensive line is really the number one strength of this offense, I would say.
In run sets.
And they don't let Jalen Daniels get hit very often.
I've seen
scrambles well.
I've seen some games though where he's under some pressure with Kansas. And I think that ASU can get after him in this game. Obviously, you don't want to let him get away, but I do think that this offensive line is more polished on a run blocking standpoint than a pass blocking standpoint. There's been some times when I've watched Kansas this year where it seems like Jalen Daniels is running for his life, and again, that might be him hanging onto the ball too long. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think you got to load up the box and hope that you could stop the run that way.
They're averaging 224 yards per game on the ground. Devin Neal, really good, 518 yards, 6 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns. Ward said he's similar to Taj Brooks, who they just recently faced, but more explosive, which can be scary. Yeah. ASU really has to be compact and figure out how to, fit those run lanes, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. That goes back to my earlier point about the motion. Just stay within your scheme, and they can win this ball game on the defensive side. Jesse brought up the turnover battle. The defensive side is going to decide this game, I feel, for ASU and Kansas.
And I also think that ASU's offensive plan will decide this game as well. Mello Dotson, Kobe Bryant. Mello and Kobe, yes.
Quite a duo.
Mello and Kobe.
Mello Dotson is a beast.
Yeah.
The guy's 6'1", 195, and leads the team in tackles with 27, and he's got 3 interceptions. As a corner. Yeah. 3 interceptions as a corner, or 27 tackles as a corner, leads the team, and he's got 3 interceptions already this season.
I think that ASU needs to run the ball and have a Mississippi State game plan in this one, because watching the tape, it looked like Kansas has some just athletic playmakers on on the defensive side of the ball that can make pretty ridiculous interceptions. So I don't want to see Kenny put and Brian Ward.
Marcus
Arroyo. Correct. I don't want to see Kenny and Marcus Arroyo put Sam into positions where
they're behind the sticks.
They're
right?
behind the sticks, and I want them to stick to the run game. I really think that I know that Sam needs to develop, but I don't think that they should be sacrificing wins in order for Sam to develop. They need to stick to that Mississippi State style of game plan, especially as they move on through conference play. Just because I at this point I don't trust. I trust the running backs more than I trust Sam, basically.
And Damon, you have a kind of update on what you're seeing at practice from the running backs. Can you give us your update there?
Yeah, so Cam Scattaboo was not at practice on Tuesday. He has been going through a little bit of an illness and has been puking quite a bit, so he got the day off today. And a lot of his reps on Tuesday went to Raleek Brown, who got a lot of those reps again on Wednesday. And Raleek Brown looks about as fresh as we've seen him at ASU practices. And he looks really, really explosive. And we talked to both Marcus Arroyo and Sean Aguano, the running backs coach, about how much more dynamic the offense can be when Raleek is in there and fully healthy and a big part of it. Just because his top end speed as a runner and as a pass catcher gets doubly more important when you consider that he can be used as a decoy in situations as well too. There was a play today where he goes to the right looking for a screen, but the play goes to the left to DeCarlos Brooks for a screen instead. But the whole defense is following Raleek Brown because he had just burned them. And so things like that, that's super good to see when the offense can develop in that way, because like Jesse was pointing to, that's an option that you can go to where Sam Levitt's not being asked to do a lot. It's just a quick check down to
Get
Raleek.
the ball to your playmakers
and let him go to work. Yeah.
Let's get to the keys to the game and predictions. Jesse, do you have a key to the game that you'd like to give?
I think I've kind of already said it mostly. ASU's got to run the ball. They got to stop the run. They've got to get turnovers, and they'll win this game. However, I'll just go ahead and give my prediction here. However, I think that this is the game that, Kansas, they need a win. I think they come out playing desperate. I think that they're going to come out playing hungry. I think that Kansas wins this one, and I'm gonna say it's going to be a relatively low scoring game. So 28-17.
Damon?
I think the biggest key here is how much Raleek can be involved in the game plan, and I think the more touches he gets, the better off ASU will be. So I think as long as he gets eight or more combined touches, between carries and catches, I think we could be looking at like an ASU 38-28 victory.
2-score game. Kansas doesn't play those. They only did one game in their loss, one time in their losses this season. My key is to keep Kansas's defense on the field. Run a lot of plays. You don't need to have the big shot play that we've been looking for this season, Jesse. I think if ASU can run the ball, burn the clock a little bit, keep Kansas's defense on the field in terms of just time. It's hot, getting tired. I think ASU can win this game like that. I think ASU wins this one. I think it's a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be 21-17. ASU wins.
Nice.
Okay.
2-score game.
A sweep. All three of us.
Well, not 2-score game.
That's a 1-score game, Jeremy.
Yeah.
That's a 1-score game.
But if a field goal, if you get
okay.
Damon,
you were at ASU basketball practice this week. What did you see?
Yeah, it was really fun. This team looks like a team that's going to be a lot more high octane than last year's team was. They're going to really get out in transition. Obviously, when you have talent like Jaden Quinence and Joe Sansonon, it's easier to do that. But I think that what we saw, the biggest takeaway was that Adam Miller is the unquestioned leader, it seemed. He was vocal for dang near the whole practice that we were able to see, at least. always making sure that guys are hitting the reps the way they're supposed to and communicating and making sure that like the passes are happening when they're supposed to. He just brought an energy to the practice that Kenny described it before it got extra vocal as like a church in that gym. And
You mean Bobby?
Yeah, whoa. Bobby said it was like a church. And it really
said
became
that before, hasn't he? That's one of his
Damon?
like no, I'm talking about Bobby, like saying that
he doesn't want the gym to be like a church.
Yeah.
He probably did.
It's one of those coaches things.
He, sometimes he'll call out the students and
for it being a little
but I don't know if he's ever said it's been a church.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like the on-court stuff that we saw, I saw Joe Sansonon make an incredible assist for a 3 to Bryson Long. Jaden Quinence was playing a little bit of the power forward instead of the center, like maybe a lot of us were thinking. Bobby said that he's maybe closer to a point guard than a center, which I don't know how much I believe that. I'm looking forward to seeing it if it's true though. That's kind of the takeaway from day one.
What do you hope to see as you continue to go to these practices for basketball? And Damon, I want to ask Damon as many basketball questions as possible because it's his number one thing that he loves football too. Don't get me wrong, but he is a basketball junkie. This kid, he wears a basketball reference shirt all the
multiple
time.
times on the podcast.
Yes. So I do want to know your thoughts on what you hope to see from this team as it gets closer to the preseason exhibition games that they're gonna play against Duke and other teams.
I just want to see some motion in the half-court offense and some everybody eats types of approach to how they do things in terms of just not only like who gets what shot attempts, but also can we actually play 10 or 11 guys in the rotation? Because I think there are 10 or 11 guys who deserve at least 10 or 12 minutes. And like Amir Ali, who is the least heralded of these three freshmen, but I've been just amazed anytime I've seen him on the court. And even in kind of a role player role that I saw him just in this one day, he was still looking like a guy who belongs on a college court as a true freshman.
Wow.
And that's not something you can always say about people who are on ASU's bench, especially. Obviously, we're hoping for bigger things out of Quinence and Sanon, but I think it's a really good collection of talent. Should give us a really good sense of where Hurley's coaching is at.
It's good to see that they have so much talent, especially this year, first year going into Big 12 play, the best conference in college basketball.
And I've actually thought that might be part of why Quinence's they're doing double big stuff is just because of how physical the Big 12 is. Like Houston will play 3 6'9" guys at the same time, and they're all like over 230 pounds. And so I think Bobby might just be trying to account for that. But yeah, it should just be a really fun season, I think.
Jesse, ASU hockey is starting up this Friday. They're at Air Force. Their first season in the NCHC. 8 of the 9 teams are in the preseason top 20.
Yeah, this is crazy. So ASU hockey has joined an incredible conference here. You think about Big 12 for NCAA men's basketball. That is probably like an understatement compared to this. This is insane. ASU is the 8th rated team or was 8th in the preseason poll, right? And they are tied for number 20th in the country. So think about that. 8 of the 9 teams in this, they're 8th out of 9.
Jeez.
And they're basically a ranked team. So it's going to be really hard for ASU to, their record might not be great this year, but they could probably still get into the NCAA tournament just based off of
Their opponents.
They
have to play Michigan.
Yeah, and then and then again they have to. They're playing Michigan as well in a non-conference game.
It's insane.
So it is going to be crazy. And they lost their top 2 goal scorers from last year.
Who's going to step up?
Who's going to step up? They had their their starting goaltender from last year, TJ Simptonfelder, I think is how.
Close.
Please correct me if I'm wrong there. He's gone, but their best goaltender from last year is back. in Gibson Homer. He had better numbers, less games, better numbers last season. And then I was told by their color commentator, shout out Alex Coyle, that Colin Potter is a freshman we've got to be watching this year because he's going to be a first-round pick in the NHL draft. And then there's a transfer from Wisconsin who had 34 points in both his freshman and sophomore years, Cruz Lucius. And then,
is this true that this kid's name is Noah Beck, the senior defenseman? Because there's a Noah Beck TikToker too.
Noah Beck. Noah Beck. He's a senior.
Has anyone seen them in the same room?
Senior defenseman transfer, NHL draft pick
from Vegas Golden Knights.
So again, it's really hard to tell how good the team is going to be.
Arizona's own Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, now that they're showing games.
Is that the games? I thought they were going to show Utah Hockey Club games.
Oh, no.
Both?
Vegas Golden Knights is over the air.
Okay, Vegas is over the air and Utah's not.
Right.
What? Okay.
Yes.
That's weird. Anyway, yeah. Hard to know how good this team's going to be.
I mean, Jesse, you already said it. You expect the team to make the tournament.
I do expect them to make the
Have
tournament.
a losing record.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I said their record could not be that great, and they could still make the NCAA tournament. I do expect them to make the tournament this year, just based off of their preseason ranking. But it's not a 64 team. Like, there's not that many teams that get into this. There's a lot of hype around this program. I believe season tickets are sold out. I'm excited to see what they can do here with this talent, the infusion that they've had via the transfer portal.
The highest level of hockey playing in the Valley.
Correct. Yep.
So
correct.
Go out and support this team. Their first game, again, like I said, is their first home game next Friday. October 11th against Michigan at Mullet Arena. That's going to be awesome. And then that Saturday, obviously ASU football plays that day as well. Friday.
I believe they are going to schedule it so that there's no conflicts with either of those games.
So the Michigan Friday game is at 3 p.m. And then the football game is later that night. I think 7:30.
7:30.
So maybe we'll pop in and see
it
a
would
little
be
bit of the
cool
first
to
game.
do both. Yeah, it'd be cool to do both for sure.
And then Saturday against Michigan, that's a 5 p.m. start. Make sure to go out and watch that one. That's going to be both of those. That's going to be fun. But first, Air Force Friday at Air Force, 6:05 p.m. start local time here. Both Friday and Saturday.
Yes, and I'll just say this: we'll try our best this year to ramp up the coverage of that team. Again, it's the highest level of hockey in the Valley, and I think that it's something that it's definitely growing in popularity at Arizona State, and something that we should be more on top of here.
Let's go around ASU athletics before we get out of here. Volleyball plays Utah at Mullet Arena tonight. As you're watching this or listening to this, it might have already happened. Go check out the score. They play Utah tonight, and then on Friday they play at DFA at 5 p.m. against BYU.
Sick collab, by the way. ASU volleyball did on Twitter, where they said they were back on the ice or something like that, which is, they're playing at Mullet, so they had volleyball players in hockey jerseys, which was a cool kind of mix of the two sports, which I thought was fun.
So they're coming off a loss to Baylor.
We love to see sports crossovers.
Yeah, they're coming off a loss to Baylor. They lost 3-1, and then they dropped to number 15 in the coaches poll.
Only one spot.
Yeah,
only one spot.
I mean, they were at 14 for what, like 2 or 3 weeks. So they're solidified as a top 25 team in the country at this point.
Yep.
Jelly Sear named Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week. She had 18 kills, career high against TCU. She's been great this season, and it's awesome to see that she got a career high and was recognized for that by the Big 12 Conference. Swimming starts Friday at Mona Plummer Aquatic Center against UNLV. Men's is 6th. Women's is 21st. Men's team obviously coming off that national championship.
New coach this year for sure, but Ilya Karun is back, who won a bronze medal in Paris, so expectations are high.
That's going to do it for this edition of State of the Sun Devils. Thank you so much for listening and watching. You can find every single one of these podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch almost every single one of them on our YouTube channel. Just go to the Arizona Sports YouTube channel. You can find us there. You can also find us on all forms of social media at AZ Sports Devils is where that's at, including Threads, Jesse.
Threads.
Yeah, we have Threads. Anyway, for Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred, I'm Jeremy Schnell. We will see you on Saturday.